here in a 64 Comet Cyclone. This was the Mercury counterpart to the Ford Falcon, and in 64, Mercury made this thing look a lot more aggressive than it had previously. The Cyclone was kind of the performance variant of this car. It came with a 289 that they called the Super Cyclone, which had a 4-barrel, dual exhaust was standard. You could get a 4-speed even though a 3-speed manual was standard. And it came with the chrome reverse wheel styled wheel covers and some other cool things. This was definitely a car that Mercury wanted you to look at as a performance car, a sporting vehicle. And they were definitely aiming at the youth market with this car. The one that we got here has some hot rod parts on it, and it's got a top-loader 4-speed and a Detroit locker out in the back. So it definitely feels like a hot rod, but it's still nice and compact, so it has that lightness and the smallness that makes it fun to drive. And you could do a lot more with one of these cars. Of course, you know, Mercury drag raced these, but they also used them for rally racing. And of course, Mustangs used the same platform, and those cars were used for road racing, and there's all kinds of parts you can get for these things. So you could really build a fun car out of one of these. We like driving this car. It's got manual steer and manual brakes, and her shifter's kind of rigid, but it makes you pay attention, and it's kind of fun in that way. If you were shopping for a car from the earliest days of the muscle era, the Mercury Comet might not be on your list. Well, maybe it should be. This Cyclone has the factory K-Code engine. K-Code is kind of a magical term in Ford parlance. However, it's important to point out the K-Code in this car is not the same as the one that came in the Mustang. The Mustang had the hot 271 horsepower version. This one is rated at 210 horsepower. It's got a tamer hydraulic camshaft. It still came with a 4-barrel and dual exhaust, and it's still fairly lively. If you're not into absolute numbers matching, so many things you can do to these. You could put a 5-liter in one of these if you wanted. It would be almost a bolt-in. Because these are built on the same platform as the Mustang, there's lots of aftermarket support for these, both restoration and performance. If you wanted to have one that was lively like this, but a little more subtle, you could add power steering, you could add a rack and pinion. This 4-speed could be swapped for a 5-speed, Tremec TKX, or even a T5, which would shift as smooth as glass and would give you overdrive. Really, these cars are just kind of fun to drive because they're small and they're light. It's kind of like an early Mustang, but it's got a little more style in some ways. The Comet launched for 1960 as part of Detroit's burgeoning compact market. The Comet was going to be part of the Edsel lineup, believe it or not. And when Edsel was shuttered in 1959, Ford had to come up with a different plan. They didn't make it a Mercury then, they actually launched Comet as its own brand. In the door jamb, the plate said Comet, made in USA. But by 1964, Mercury gave the car a refresh with the styling you see here. Much more aggressive looking, much more modern. Curiously, the grille definitely has some influence from Lincoln. The hood you see on this car is actually not original to a production Comet. That's a replica of the hood used on some of the AFX race cars. Mercury built about 50 cars for the drags with 427 dual quad engines. Early ones had a teardrop hood like the Thunderbolt, and then they developed this twin scoop hood, which actually has a built-in ram air setup that hooked up to the 2 carburetors. Now, the Comet Cyclone was intended as a performance model, as we said before. The base model was the 202, then you moved up to the 404. Then the Caliente was sort of the sporty trim model. Cyclone was intended for performance, and it came standard with a 289 4-barrel engine. All right, there's a lot going on in here from the period, but not so much of it is factory, so I'll explain. The K-Code thing, first of all, you think of a K-Code in a Mustang with 271 horsepower. That's not what this car came with. It had a K-Code, and it's even in the VIN, but it was a 210 horsepower rating with a hydraulic cam. It did have a 4-barrel, it did have dual exhaust, it did not have special exhaust manifolds, but it was still a peppy version of the 289. As I said, you could get a 3-speed manual as standard, 4-speed manual if you optioned it up, or you could get an automatic. This engine is a 289, but it's hotted up a bit. It's probably similar to what a GT350 Mustang would have come with. It's got an aluminum intake that's a dual plane, a Holley 600. It's got tri-Y tube headers and a hotter cam in it. And with the Holman Moody valve covers and some of the other bits, it looks pretty period appropriate. And it kind of serves to show how easy it is to hot rod one of these cars and still keep it looking correct for the period and still a very drivable car. And of course, you guys know the Ford small block is infinitely rebuildable and modifiable. And if you get one of these cars and the 289's gone, you can easily put a 302 in it. We had a lot of fun driving this thing because with the hot 289 and the 4-speed and the 9-inch that has some gears and a Detroit locker, it's kind of a rowdy little unit. Bucket seats had been offered in the Comet prior to 1964, but back then Mercury called it S22. That was a package that also turned up on the Marauder. For 64, when the Cyclone rolled out, bucket seats were part of the package. That console was part of the package as well. This steering wheel is simulated wood, not real, and it has a designated Cyclone horn button. This whole thing was considered fairly sporting. It's a Cyclone exclusive. The instrument cluster has full instrumentation. That tachometer up on the dash that looks like something a hot rodder would have put there, that was also factory. The car came that way. This car was built with a 4 on the floor, but that Hurst shifter would not have been there originally. That's something somebody added later on. The factory shifter did have a chrome stick, but it had the twin finger reverse lockout and a black knob. This upholstery is either ivory or some other form of white, and it looks super sharp on this car against the aqua metallic paint. All right, underneath the Comet should seem real familiar to Ford fans. This is the platform originally developed for the Falcon, and of course it was used later under the Mustang, and it lived on until the early 80s. It's one of Ford's earliest unit bodies, and it's okay, but it was kind of known for two things: squeaking front ends and rot. So in the front end, the suspension is designed with control arms and reaction rods that are steadied with rubber bushings. There are A-arms up above, and the coil spring sits on top of the A-arm and goes up into a spring pocket in the unit body. Those spring perches on the bottom of the coil springs were known to kind of wear out prematurely, and then they would start squeaking. These bushings and the reaction rods would wear out. And in general, when these cars were in service, they were kind of known for clunking around and making noise by the mid-70s. If you're going to rebuild the front end of one of these, and it's likely that you will have to, use the best parts you can find. There's a lot of cheap stuff on the market. Those parts are going to wear out prematurely and you're going to be doing it again. As you go back, these are again similar to Mustang, but we notice the Comet's got some torque boxing plates in it that Mustangs don't have, probably contributing to the rigidity we kind of feel in this car, which is surprising from a 60s unit body. One other thing on the front of this car, we said earlier that Comets in 64 could only be had with 4-wheel drum brakes. And you may notice that this car has discs up front. We put those on. That's a kit from Lead Brakes, but it's based on the stuff that a 65 Mustang could have been optioned with. They're, I think, 10-inch rotors and 4-piston iron calipers. I think it's based on a Kelsey Hayes design. We used these because it was really easy to install. It was relatively inexpensive. And maybe most of all, they fit behind the stock 14-inch wheels, which we wanted to have on this car. 14s were stock with white striped tires and these wheel covers that look like chrome reverse mags, and the owner of this car wanted to go back to that look. If you're into resto mods, you can go nuts with these cars. If you're into restoration, pretty much everything you need for these is readily available. If you're shopping for an early Comet and you're interested in a car that's very original and correct, and you want to know about the numbers that should be cast into certain things and other stamped numbers, head over to Hemmings.com and check out one of our buyer's guides. We go into a lot of detail in those, and we can give you much of the information you'll need to verify if the car you're looking at has all its correct parts. So if you aren't thinking about that early muscle car from the early era, Comet probably should be on your list. These are neat little cars, and they have a little bit more style than their Falcon counterparts, and certainly a bit more exclusivity than their Mustang cousins. Now, right now, the market for these cars is still fairly reasonable. It's another benefit of the Comet, but they are on the rise. '64 Mercury Comet Cyclone. Plenty of great 60s styling, a strong racing pedigree, ample parts availability, and just a fun car to drive and own. If you're interested in learning even more about the '64 Mercury Comet, head over to Hemmings.com. We've got buyer's guides and other information to fill you in on all the details. And of course, if you're interested in buying one of these cars, the marketplace at Hemmings.com will have listings that you can check out and other services to help you buy the car of your dreams. Thanks everybody for watching. Keep an eye on our socials, and we'll see you in the next one.